Morning, everybody, and very happy New Year to everybody. Hope you've had a good festive break. Welcome, councillors, officers, members of the public to the meeting, Strategy and Resources Committee. Reminder, please switch your mobile phones to silent. There are members of the press attending this meeting virtually. Can I please ask those attending virtually to switch off your microphone to avoid any disruption during the meeting. The meeting is being recorded and will be available in due course on the council's YouTube channel. Reminder for councillors to ensure that those attending virtually can hear the proceedings, and for the recording to capture the entire meeting, please ensure you project your voice and speak clearly. That meant for me. Please remember it's a formal meeting and therefore do not refer to councillors or officers by their first names. No fire alarm plan, therefore, hearing fire alarm, please leave the building by your nearest marked out fire exit and assemble at the top of you. We do apologies for absence, please.
Yes, Chair, apologies for absence received from councillors Caroline Lever and Councillor Hunt, but she has joined us virtually.
Any other apologies? We accept those apologies. Chair, and two, to approve the correct record of minutes of the meeting held on the 2nd of December. Anybody like to approve them? Approve, thank you. Somebody to second those, thank you. All those in favour of the minutes? Thank you. Item 3, there's nothing urgent to be brought forward. Item 4, any declarations of interest?
I have received declarations of interest from Councillor Lane in items 7 and 8 due to him owning more than one property. So it's a personal financial interest for him. Thank you.
Yeah, you any other?
Chairman, he's nudged me. I need to do the same.
All right, yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Any other declarations of interest? Yeah, thank you. Item 5, no part B. So on to part A. There's an update. I've got that back to it, Mark's. Is anybody at the back, by the way, who wants to speak? Please shout out if you don't speak.
Okay, yes. Morning, Chairman. This will be quite a quick update. I think when I last spoke to you, we were nearing completion of the construction element of the works. That was all completed on time, as we hoped, and no issues to report on any of that, which is good. And then the bits of the baler started to arrive just before Christmas, and then this morning is that marks the start of the installation, putting together new baling system. So that will be happening over the next 4 weeks, and then we're done. As we go into February, we'll be commissioning and testing everything. Yeah, all good, all on schedule, and working as expected.
Good. Any questions? Financially, I remember in the previous report you put that everything was on okay and we were getting budget. That's still the case. Any other questions?
It's an easy start.
Thank you. Yes. I think you'll be finished about 10:30 today. Okay, we'll move on. Item 7, council tax reduction scheme. Thank you.
Good morning, councillors. So I've got 2 reports today. The first one is the council tax reduction scheme, which is basically a people-based scheme based on income. As you'll see on page 16, it outlines the bands, the various bandings, and the income of the household to show the percentage discount. There's been no changes in our scheme this year. There hasn't been for a couple of years. Just noting from the introduction 1.4, we are still one of the few local authorities in Devon who offer 100 support towards those or their lowest income for their council tax. So basically, they don't have to pay anything if they're on the very lowest. Said we're not many other local authorities in Devon have that in their scheme. So I'm more than happy to answer any questions before I move on to
Thank you.
anything else. There's not much else I can say really.
No, we'll get into everything quickly. That's very efficiently done. So, questions, comments on council tax reduction scheme?
Jim, I just wanted to just say thank you to Sarah and her team, who I know lots of people that have been in touch with the council through these schemes over the last few weeks, particularly since the winter fuel allowance announcement, and how pleased and happy they are with the reception and the help they've had. I do think it's worth it on record.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Brown. Yes. Councillor, now were you testimony?
Basis, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, anyone is, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Bell, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I had a handful, if that's okay, just quite small points. Page 50, 17.3. I'm going to made my notes a few days ago, so I'm having to catch up with myself slightly. But it refers to more than one child creating, where you get a certain reduction if you have one child and a certain reduction if you have more than one child. I think it's £300 the household. Obviously, some households, and I may have declared an interest because I have the trippy, more than one child, and it doesn't create, there's no sliding scale involved. And as we've seen, this is a difficult situation where some households, for various reasons, especially blended households, may have 4, 5, 6 children. So it does create a significant burden on households that might have 2 children. Whatever God's blessed them with, this is a little bit of a difficulty. Is there anything we can touch on here that can improve the situation for a lot of families?
Obviously, this would need that change in the policy itself, so that's not something we could do at this meeting now because.
Yeah, there's the scheme in front of you, as Sarah said earlier, there's a slightly different nuance in terms of whether it's come up for 100%. The detail in terms of the scheme itself is something that is standardised across all Devon. So again, it's something that we've agreed across Devon in favour of a council that's consistent. Obviously, yes, those costs do go up if you have more than one child. But it's finding that balance because obviously if you did have a sliding scale and a more generous scheme, then obviously that would increase the cost of the scheme as well. So when the scheme's been put forward, we try to find that balance, find something that is fair and equitable. And obviously where there is more than one child, obviously the additional costs obviously been shown in 17.3. But we've tried to find something that's got that balance between additional costs and fairness.
Wonderful, thank you very much. It would be nice to address that in the future, maybe. And let's see. Also, page 19, I think this is something we could address. I recognise what you said about this being a Devon-wide thing. Page 90, 68 to 74A, which is about, I can't get to the page fast enough. It's about methods of communication, methods of filling in these forms and discussing them. So obviously we can do it over the telephone, we can do it over email, and you can write in. I feel with our beautiful new hub that I see is work is underway in the centre of Barnstaple, in person is something that would be very useful, very good for a lot of people. Also partly because some people have limited ability to deal with these complicated forms, and a face-to-face meeting, as I find since my stroke, a face-to-face is definitely the best way of doing some things. Some people don't have English as their first language, which is another thing to accommodate. And again, face-to-face and the use of translators is very, very useful. Certainly if you've got one phone and you're having to have translation through somebody else, that's a very difficult position to be in. You might not be able to use the email either in those situations. Of course, people have limited means.
I can answer that if you like. When it says in writing, it has to be formally in writing in the respect of, in order for it to be considered. Often that is done face to face. At the moment, obviously we're open 3 mornings a week at the moment. So, as you said, in the hub it'll be full time. So that is already happening. It just, and if our advisor needs to assist in writing it for the person, then they will. So it's not exclusive and face to face. There just needs to be something in writing. It can't just be verbal. It has to be in writing. But
Oh,
said they already get that assistance.
They do get that. Is that made clear to people?
When people come in, if they have any issues, absolutely. If they phone up and say, I can't do this, we can't sort it out over the phone, we'll say, well, these are our opening hours. Pop in and we'll help you. So yeah, that is something that we do as standard already.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. And that'll be easier once it's moved into that nice unit. Thank you very thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, sir. The recommendations. Anybody? Councillor Lever, all in favour? Yeah. Move on to item 8.
So the council tax discounts and premiums, so this is based on the property itself rather than the personal income. So you'll see on page 144 exactly what those discounts and premiums currently are. Many of you will remember that it was agreed back in February 2024 that we would introduce the premium for second homes. And this is due to be implemented as from the 1st of April. And the details of those premiums are shown on the page 146 to 147. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions about that.
Yeah, can I just ask, obviously you've been meeting quite regularly recently with other district leaders, whether there's any progress. I don't want to talk about devolution or non-devolution, whichever way you like to at this stage, but about the county council's attitude on this second home council tax, because I really think it's a big moral issue.
Yeah.
Everybody I talk to can't believe that the other authorities aren't agreeing to put the second home council tax monies into a pot.
Absolutely.
I just wonder whether there's any progress on it, Chair.
No progress, because it made it perfectly plain that it's going to be all in their budget setting, and because Devon County have had real problems financially, then imagine that money will go elsewhere.
I agree with you morally. I think it should, if the district council have made that decision to increase and double the council tax for second homes, it wouldn't be there. But
Sorry.
so it should be on something to do with relieving the housing situation that the crisis that we're in. I agree with you, but the county have their own methods and own ways of doing things. So there's a possibility they will still spend some of it. They might even spend all of it, but at the moment we don't know until their budget comes out. Council. I agree with you. Any questions, Councillor Bell?
Just to add to what Councillor Prowse said, because can we ensure that we do carry on pressing Devon County on this, because it is an important matter, and it's worth noting that Devon and Cornwall Police are now talking about ring fencing the money that they'll be making, which is significant, and putting that into additional policing on the streets. So they'll be using that in areas where it is needed most. So they are doing what they can, we are doing what we can, and every other district is doing what they can. It's just the county council that needs to consider more carefully the needs of people in housing insecurity.
Yeah, I mean that's why it was set up and why it was done. It wasn't because it was any kind of anti-second home thing. It was a way of helping relieve the housing crisis that we're in. Councillor Crabb.
Very briefly, Chair, and just to clear my own mind on it. The county council, quite rightly or wrongly, are doing what they've said they're going to do. I don't know the ins and outs of that. We'll find that out shortly as part of the budget process. However, I'm curious. Councillor Bell says that whilst he's objecting to Devon County spending their own money, he thinks it's very wise that the police keep their money and spend their own money. Arguing against yourself, it sounds.
No, I'm simply saying that the Devon Police are putting the money into. The Devon Police can't build houses. They're putting it into policing, but they are doing it specifically. They're showing how they're going to be using that money to help people in certain areas.
And I think the police were part of the housing commission either, Paul.
No, probably not.
They probably have some houses, but that's about it. Yeah,
I
they
mean,
can't do much more.
You could argue, you could make a case possibly that making the police spend it on some kind of housing issue, policing more in certain housing areas. It's not the same as, because the county has the ability to actually directly relieve the housing situation. The police don't, but the police, by no fault of their own, are going to get this extra money. So I understand what you're saying, but I don't think it's as clear cut as what it is for the county. I mean, I don't know what your position is, Councillor Crabb, but I hope that you can bring us a county councillors some kind of whatever influence you've got down there to perhaps make them see sense and spend it on the housing situation. Both that, Councillor Matthew as well. That's for you to decide, obviously. Not for us to try and make you do that. Any other questions and comments on your report? Thank you very much. A quick one, thank you.
Can I agree that?
So do we make a vote, Chair? We go on it as well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll say something. Propose a second, whatever you choose.
Yeah, can we all? Thank you.
I abstain, Chair.
You abstained? Sorry, did you get that? Apologies, my fault. Item 9.
Yes,
Sorry.
yes, apologies. He's doing the long list of employees with illnesses at the moment, so we're not going to be here today, so I'll present this one for me. This report's seeking to allocate public open space 106 monies to 2 projects, one in Croyd and one in South Molton. The first project is to allocate just over 23,000 to Georgian Parish Council for upgrades to the very popular play park at the back of Croyd Village Hall. Just putting some new equipment in there and installing it. And the second contribution is just over 314,000 to South Molton Football Club towards their new facilities there, which include new pitches and clubhouse and changing rooms. So subject to the approval of those 2 items, recommendation is that the SNR committee recommends council vary the capital programme by £337,205.88, and that funds be released subject to a funding agreement on such terms and conditions that may be agreed by the senior solicitor and one so.
Thank you, Mark. There's 2 parts to this then, isn't there? There's the Croyd one and South Molton.
Correct.
So I know there are people, councillors who want to speak on these things. Councillor Maskell, first of all.
Yeah,
To do with Croyd, first of all.
yeah, I was going to say I'm delighted with this proposal. I think to make the play park accessible in Croyd will be really beneficial. We have quite a hub of disability schemes that go on in the village, that accessible surfing, etc. So this will just add to it, and I'm really delighted with it, and to propose that we accept this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Maskell. Can I just put that line down?
Yeah.
Just say the words, I mean.
On the Croyd one. Is it?
Yeah.
We'll come to South Molton in a minute,
Okay.
Councillor Wade. Does anybody else want to speak on the Croyd one?
I'm not speaking, I'm speaking in favour.
You don't want to speak on
I'd
it?
like to second
No, right.
Councillor Maskell's.
Anybody else on Croyd? Councillor Bell, no. Okay, we'll move on to South Molton one then. Anybody wants to speak from the committee on South Molton one? No, Councillor Worden?
Yeah, just to say that I very much support this. It's something that South Molton Football Club have been wanting to do for a very long time. It's quite an expensive scheme, as you can probably see, and so they desperately need our support. And so I would be really very much in favour of us supporting them because they do a very good job amongst our young people in the town. and not just young people as well.
No, I know you've been pushing for this, councillor Wording, for some time.
That's all right.
That's good. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Bell?
Very quick comment from the housing perspective, if that's okay. Obviously, this section 106 money doesn't come out of the EFA, it comes because of developments that have gone on. It's just good to see that developments that have gone on in South Malta and developments that have gone on in Georgium are bringing forward things like this, which will provide an actual benefit to the local people.
Mr. Bradshaw,
Yeah,
you want to say something, but
I'm looking probably at Dave Ward and that, and Mark Kentel. There were great plans afoot to have had this sports hub for South Morton with all the clubs together. And I just wonder how now, obviously the football club relocating is going to be a huge capital cost. But how do we judge between different sports? And I declare an interest as a rugby fan, obviously, and having had long connections with South Morton Rugby Club, which is a great little community club as well. I just wondered how it balanced up, because it looks like the huge weight has gone towards soccer rather than the hub before. Not a criticism, but just want to make sure that there's a proper process that's worked with the community.
Yeah.
it's criticism.
Sorry, first, David.
It's not a criticism, Mark.
No, I mean it's one that, as David said, it's been this project has been sort of rumbling for quite a number of years now, certainly since I think when I first started at the council. And as you say, Malcolm, the original project was looking at a joint site for rugby and football on a field just to the south of the school.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that the rugby club kind of moved a bit quicker, didn't they, David, and found another site for their extra pitch that they were looking for. So they forged ahead with that. The football club, as you can see in this project, were reliant on selling their existing site in order to get funding, or the core bit of funding for this project. So I don't think there was ever, it wasn't one sport versus the other. It was just circumstances and timing, really.
I've really got much to add to that. I think you've summed it up very well, Mark.
Okay. Councillor Wilkinson?
Yeah, it's a matter of interest, really. 106 money, I mean, whether we want to talk about devolution now or not devolution. What happens to unspent 106 money if devolution goes ahead?
It would be part of the assets of that authority that transfer to any new authority.
So it'll all be transferred to county or unitary.
We don't.
What job that? I mean, it might be the authority in
That's
this.
not the hair's running yet. We don't know what any new arrangements will look like, or whether there will be any arrangements. But if there are new arrangements and new authorities come into being, then the order that creates that new authority will also transfer assets from the old authorities to that new authority, in the same way that it happened back in 1973.
You remember? David remembers.
Thank you. Just something that was buzzing around a bit.
Yeah. But the restrictions on how you can spend that money will also transfer. That's the important point, is the restrictions on how you spend that money will also transfer. So if the 106 agreement, for instance, says that the money has to be spent on X project, then that will still transfer.
Yeah. Thank you. That's the answer.
Actually, well, with this one, the plan pitch strategy that the FA have put together with us also makes this quite a high priority for them. So that would have.
Any other questions, points? We'll move the recommendations to accept this. Councillor Bell, seconded. Councillor Prowse, all those in favour? Any abstentions? Yeah, thank you. 10, car parking.
Thank you, Chair. I think the leader of the car parks manager something positive to say. So I'm going to run through the context report before I do. If you're happy, Chair, just pass over to Councillor Walker, who get the car park working group, just to give a brief introduction.
Good morning, members. Just to give you a brief introduction to what, how this policy came about. We've held 3 workshops, task and finish group, which were cross-party, and their focus was on putting forward these recommendations following a great deal of work by the car parks team on finding out information for us as to the correct way forward. And I think we've come up with a fairly good set of recommendations. One of the things that I'm sure we've all noticed on social media is grumblings about car park charges, and the main one being, why aren't our car parks free? If our car parks were free, our town centres would be thriving, and various things like that. And the first thing I want to mention is why we have to charge for car parks. If you were to go into town at 8 o'clock on a morning and the car parks were free, they would be full of people who lived and worked in that area. There would not be any car parking for people wishing to come in and use the town centres for anything else. Obviously, we also need the income to maintain the facilities, and it does go some way towards helping our budget in general. Couple of things I want to bring up is the long stay permits. It looks like they've gone up. We want to put them up by a lot, but it's still fantastically good value for those who work in the area. This is the permit system. It still works out at about £1 a day for those who are using those long stay cars, working or other needs who need permits in those car parks. And it's one of the things that we came up with in the working group was to keep the Seven Brethren car park, which is, as we all know, is moving in about just over a week's time to its new site, and keeping that car park at the current rate of £225 per year to encourage its use and for people to get used to it being there, and the fact that it's going to be as useful as the current Seven Brethren car park, because there's more things that people can do from there. The access to Rock Park, for instance, from that site is fantastic. So I'd like to hand over to John now to go through the figures.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. So members, the cross-party working group that Group Leaders set up, as Councillor Walker alluded to, had 3 workshops. They looked at a range of data around permits, current income levels by car parks, payment methods and how that's changed over the years, and that varies depending on types of car parks as well. Data on 30-minute usage versus the previous 1-hour usage and whether that's been introduced in various car parks. And also charges in our existing car parks and charges on comparable car parks across other local authorities near to us. And the focus of that was to bring all that together, and that's culminated in the report that's in front of you today. And that's come to you today in advance of the budget being proposed, which will come to members at your next meeting, and also to enable the off-street parking order to be consulted upon. So the report sets out on page 157 to 161 a summary, and the report sets out the proposals for the off-street parking order that have also been requested by town and parish councils, because those car parks also form part of the off-street parking order, and also the proposals following the cross-party working group for the NDC car parks. They're all contained within the off-street parking order, which, as you can see from your report pack, is on about 100 pages within Appendix A on pages 163 to 260. In terms of the changes proposed for North Devon Council car park, for simplicity, we've included Appendix B, which is 4 pages on 261 to 264, which sets out the proposed changes to the charges for the NDC car parks. You'll see the proposed increases in terms of permits on the first page. And as Councillor Walker alluded to, the permits have been historically very cheap and very good value for money. The proposal is to increase those permits. When the group looked at comparable permits, when the group have looked at comparable permits across other local authorities, for example, our neighbours in Torridge, they have a 12-month permit across a number of their car parks at £500, and a business permit for 12 months for £420. Similarly, in Mid Devon, a 12-month permit is in the region of £491. So our proposal to go to £300 is still remarkably good value for money. As alluded to, it works out about £1 a day, Obviously, over the next few years, there will be significant budget pressures coming as well as part of setting the budget, and you will need to make decisions around future levels of charges. And obviously, part of that will be consideration around those permit charges future years. Also proposed as part of the report are the proposals to short stay and long stay car parks. The proposal is the group looked at a number of different proposals around whether the coastal car park should go up by higher amounts again, similarly to last time when this was considered in 2023. But the group concluded that consistency across the increase was important to them, and the proposal was that 10 pence on all of the car parks per hour increase. First increase 2 years. Obviously, inflation over the last couple of years has been relatively high, and therefore a 10p increase on the short stay car parks, a 10p increase on the coastal car parks, and also a 10 pence increase on the half an hour charge in those car parks from 50 pence to 60 pence. In addition to that, looking at the long stay car parks, then the long stay car parks are still, again, historically being relatively cheap. And the group wanted to look at an increase on the long stay car parks. But also we have some long stay car parks that are closer to the town centre and some that are further away. And is it fair that the price goes up across the board to all those long stay car parks? And that's where the proposal to retain the Seven Brethren car park, which is the furthest one away, at an existing price of £2.50 all day, but an increase on all the other long stay car parks to go up to £3.50 all day, and an increase on the hourly rate as well. Again, that was to incentivise the use of the new Seven Brethren car park and to have some difference between the logistics of where those long stay car parks are held. Similarly, the group also looked at the charges for Green Lanes, because that car park does fall under North Devon Council ownership as part of the shopping centre, and importance to make sure that the charges in Green Lanes aligns to the charges within the town centre so that we haven't got differences within those charging structures. There have been slightly different charging rates in Green Lanes over the last few years, and obviously now that we own the shopping centre, it's important that they are aligned. And if members wanted to look at proposals to help the town centre in the future, that might be around when we charge and when we don't charge, etc., then it's important that we look at a strategy across all those car parks, including town centre car parks and Green Lanes together. The other elements that was looked at was the South Molton car park charge. So over the years, there's always been a difference between the car park in South Molton and the wider short stay car parks across the wider North Devon district. Within South Molton, there are two car parks. There is the larger central car park, which is a long stay car park. And that proposal is to be the same as our other long stay car parks in North Devon, to increase to 70 pence an hour and £3.50 all day. The other car park, which is just across the road, is has been always classed as a short stay car park, but for a number of years has always had a long stay charge element to it. And that's been a nuance that's been in South Molton for some years. And each time we look at car park charges, there's always been a bone of contention when members have that discussion. So the group felt it was important for consistency to ensure that if it is a short stay car park, then it should have the short stay rate that is applied across the wider district. But obviously there's a discussion that you as members need to have as to whether you feel comfortable with that, because that is quite a significant increase from the existing 60p an hour, £2.50 all day, to go up to £1.40 an hour as a short stay car park. It is directly across the road from the existing long stay car park, so it's not that far away from the existing long stay arrangement. And next door to the short stay car park is a privately owned car park through the George Arcade, where they are charging currently, I think it's around 50 pence an hour. So there is a slight difference there and a nuance there that obviously members need to consider around whether you are comfortable with that moving forward to the short stay car park and going to the new short stay rate, or if you want to maintain that at the existing long stay rate, then really that car park should move to become a long stay car park and not a short stay car park. I know Councillor Warden, as ward member, will obviously want to address the committee. We've had representations from the Town Council around that as well, but again, that's for you to members to consider. We're obviously putting that information out there for you to consider that as part of your deliberations. The proposals that are in front of you to go up by 10 pence an hour are still cheaper than a lot of our neighbouring authorities. The charges within neighbouring authorities at Torridge, their main town centre car parks, are currently £1.50 an hour and the coastal car parks 170 an hour. So proposals in this report is to go from 130 an hour in the town centre car parks to 140, that's still 10 pence cheaper than the neighbouring authorities, and the coastal car parks to 160 an hour. Again, still 10 pence cheaper than the neighbouring authorities, and that's at the current rates of those neighbouring authorities. They may propose increases for their 25-26 budget round. Similarly, in Mid Devon, the hourly rates in Mid Devon are £1.60 an hour in their town centre car. The financial considerations from the report tie in with the medium-term financial plan that you approved back in February 2024 that factors in a review of the fees and charges for 25-26 year, and that built in an estimated income of an additional £300,000 that was built into the medium-term financial plan. The proposals in the report in front of you are estimated to increase revenue by around 350,000. But obviously we do need to potentially allow for some volatility in terms of usage, because that may potentially decrease some usage in some car parks. But the estimated income is in line with what's anticipated from the proposed increases in front of you. Chair, that concludes the report in front of you. The recommendations are set out in section 2 and are in 2.1 to 2.7. I'm happy to take any questions on the report detail, and I'm aware, obviously, I know Councillor Morgan wants to address you in terms of the car park situation.
Before we go on to nitty-gritty, check, is the car park working group now deceased? So it's task administrator. Well, thank you for everything that they've done anyway, because I think it came back to Councillor Maskell actually back in July when it was first recommended that we set up that. It's been a very worthwhile group and some very good work done. So thank you to all those who've been involved in that. So to the nitty-gritty, Councillor Lane.
Can I just ask, there's no mention of green lanes in here, what's that?
Yes, green lanes is within the appendix at the very back. So on page 264 at the very top, you've got the green lanes charges in there, currently £1.30 an hour. There historically has been a 50 pence an hour charge in the afternoon and a 50 pence charge all day on a Sunday. That was brought in under the previous ownership, obviously when it was owned by the previous owners. The proposal is to move to be in line with our existing short stay car parks for the town centre. So that would go to £1.40 an hour all day.
Okay, thank you. And I actually raised this last year, and perhaps it could be noted to be taken off. I mentioned last year that Swimbridge hasn't got a car park, but I see it's still on page 127. So I think, in all fairness, I think there would have been Swimbridge bit. What do we remove from? Is there need to leave it on there?
Page 230,
127. It talks about Lanky. It talks about Lanky and Swimbridge. We got 127. Oh, sorry. Sorry, 227. And 229 it mentions Swimbridge.
The order, Chair, I think got to be under the order. It's not to do with charging, it's to do that the order applies, therefore we've got the right control.
I think it is, Chair. I'll double check with the team, but I think
It's nothing to do with the order, it's just the car park in Swimbridge.
I think it's a car park in the Devon and Cornwall housing
Yeah,
scheme.
but
isn't it?
it does belongs to Devon Cornwall Housing.
Does it?
Yeah.
I thought it was transferred to us.
No.
We'll double check that, Chair, and confirm. But yeah, I think it still was within there under the order. We'll double check in terms of ownership. And
If it's not in our ownership, it will need to be on the report. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Word, do you want to?
Yes, I'd love to have a word, please. I'm not against the general principle of trying to make sure that everywhere is treated fairly across North Devon in the sense of charging the same for the car parks if it's long stay and short stay and so on. But South Alton's situation is a little bit unique. And I think if we actually adopt what is actually proposed here, we will have an empty car park. Nobody will simply use it. The reason I say that is already it's been hinted by John Triggs that it's only just across the road from the central car park anyway, but we do have the complication of two other possible car parks. One is a private car park, the George Arcade, where they're charging 50p an hour, and would serve the same people that would be expected to pay 140 an hour. And you can see what people are going to do, can't you? I mean, they're not going to pay 140 if they can pay 50p. In addition, the town council made the decision during the last 12 months to not use the pannier market anymore for car parking. Obviously, we can't use it on a Thursday and a Saturday because of the fact that we have markets there. But we could use it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Fridays. But we decided that we would actually not use it anymore. But if this comes in, I can see the town council are going to say, we're going to reopen the pannier market again and charge 50p an hour or maybe 60. And that will also take away from our income as a district council. So from a practical point of view, it doesn't make sense to have an empty car park when we should be getting income from that particular area. The town council were so upset about this proposal that they actually held a special full council meeting last week to discuss this and sent in a resolution asking you to rethink this and keep it as, if you like, the sheep pen area as a long stay car park in the charges that you make. So from a practical point of view, it doesn't make sense. It's upset a whole load of people in South Morton, these proposals. If it goes ahead, it will upset a whole load more people. And basically, there will be some people that will be very happy because they'll be getting more income from their private car parks, and we will be losing out. So I would ask in this particular instance that you rethink this, please, and actually keep it as the long stay car park charges. Another point that I would raise, slightly different, is that we have a lorry park that is underutilised as well in South Morton, which we could consider using for car parking, certainly at certain days in the week, which might bring us in a little more income. Something for us to consider in the future rather than today. But I'm just thinking about our financial situation as well as the people in South Morton being rather upset by such a tremendous increase. I mean, a whole day from £2.50 to £14 a day is just astronomical. Or from basically 50p at the moment to 140 an hour is just, in my opinion, very, very well, difficult to say the least. So I hope members will understand that. So thank you for letting me speak.
Thanks, Councillor Warren. John, do you want to come back on?
Yeah, thank you. Just to confirm, the charge at the moment is 60p an hour, £2.50 all day in that car park. And obviously the difference is it's classed as a short stay, but it's currently got the long stay charging applied to it. So that's the proposal, was to change that to be in line with the other short stay car parks. As alluded to, it's for members to decide whether you want to keep it as a short stay car park or whether you want to retain it and obviously change it to a long stay element. The lorry park that Councillor Warden referred to, that request has come in and is being looked at by the car parks team. The lorry park used to be heavily utilised, but the lorry businesses are now using premises down at Parkfields Business Park. So that lorry park is very underutilised. So the team will be looking at that to see what changes could be made to add additional spaces to then maximise additional usage on the central car park.
Because this is something that came up, wasn't it? When we went to South Morton. Council.
It's too early to build into this off-street parking order in terms of changes of
some urgency be given though to that consideration.
The team are looking at that at the moment, and obviously any changes that come forward, we would need to bring forward then any changes to the OSPO. We would then need to bring that forward to the separate report, but that will be given priority.
So there's one other thing that came up with South Morton Town Council, and again, I don't know if that's been included in this, is there's on page 242,
there's a residence permit scheme that's set it for residents living within a quarter of a mile of the car park, and I know that that's meant to be for people who live in South Molton. But South Molton is of course growing, so I don't know if that quarter of a mile encompass all of the new development in South Molton, or does some of that fall outside of that? And is that something that you could look at as well?
Yeah, team have looked at that. They've looked at whether that could be extended, and even extending it a small distance did bring a significant number of additional users into play. And again, it's that balance then around those additional demands on the car park in terms of residence permits, and then whether there would be a sufficient number of places available for normal car park users. But I think it's something that needs to be looked at alongside the Lorry Park area, because obviously if you potentially could bring more residents into play, you've got more spaces available, and part of those two projects potentially could be looked at together. The team have looked at it, and they've looked at the extension of whether they can extend the quarter of a mile out further to maybe half a mile, because a lot of the new developments are on the outer skirts of South Molton, so you'd need to extend it quite a way in order to bring in those new developments.
So I'll just come back. I mean, I think the intention of that was that was for residents of South Molton, wasn't it? And it, you know, and as South Molton grows, then obviously there's more residents. And it, I mean, from my own experience, I don't know whether it's true or not, but it seems like there's always a lot of available car parking space. South Molton anyway.
The residents, the central car park is quite heavily used, certainly on certain days, especially if it's market. It's quieter on other days. The residence permits, obviously, there's a lot of people who live in and around the town centre who haven't got parking with their premises. Whereas obviously a lot of the newer developments on the outskirts obviously have got parking with their properties. I think it's finding that balance in terms of how far do we extend the quarter of a mile radius, and then what type of properties is that bringing in into play in terms of whether that benefits the town centre and the people living within the town centre, or actually by wide it actually mean that your car park is full up of residence permits, and then you haven't got available spaces for visitors and people who may then want to come into the town centre. So it is a piece of work that the team will pick up. Okay. But I think just going back to the other point around the lorry park, if that means that there's potentially more spaces available by making use of that area, it might be something that can be done two-pronged.
Can we just deal specifically with South Molton if anybody's got any comments?
Can I move an amendment in line with keeping it as a long stay car park, like where Councillor Warden is requesting, please?
Before you move that, Councillor, can I just ask is any more comments about South Molton? Councillor Warden,
Yeah,
you
I
want
mean,
to come back?
the reason that the working party we don't want to put charges up anyway, but thought we should put the charges up was because the car park is classified as short stay. If the car park should be reclassified, then I can't see it working very with any issues.
Right, Councillor Norton?
Yeah, so only actually support Councillor Lieber said just now, actually. As a reasonably frequent visitor to South Molton, it's pretty rare I ever see those car parks actually full. They look pretty well deserted an awful lot of the time, quite honestly. And I would support Councillor Warden said just now. Quite honestly, an increase of this scale will mean that one car park will be deserted, it will become unused. Just a question I'd like to ask as well, around the quarter of a mile bit. Just a bit confused there, because once you get outside of the quarter of a mile from there, we're pretty well onto new development. And I thought as part of our planning system where we put new development, make sure we've got adequate parking for those houses that are there anyway. Mm-hmm. So I'm not quite sure where their requirement for residents parking in those car parks would come anyway.
And the quarter of a mile is, it's not just for South Molton, that's across all of the North Devon area in terms of the resident permit term structure. And it's where obviously the ethos behind it was where people who are living in and around those town centres, because obviously they're sometimes they're often the bus shops, or they haven't got the on-street parking available near them. I think that's the point I was making earlier. Those newer developments are on the outskirts of South Molton, which is further than a quarter of a mile away, and should have car parking actually associated with their property, whether that be a driveway, whether it be parking spaces. That would normally be part of that development proposal when it was put forward. So the need of those residents is much lesser on the car parks. It's just whether the quarter of a mile radius captures sufficient people who are living in and around the town centre, which at the moment we feel it did. as soon as the car parks team extended it out even a fraction, it brought in a considerable number of other properties that then would have meant that car park potentially becomes unbalanced in terms of number of spaces available. But it's something the team can have a look at and just see where that radar hits in terms of extending the 14 mile further and whether it is actually justified moving forwards.
Mr. Wilson?
Just to add to that, so realistically, the quarter of a mile bit, although is kind of largely irrelevant to the discussion we're having at the moment from that kind of feeling. So certainly I'll second Councillor Lane's proposal.
Councillor Bill, is your hand up there?
I was going to second Councillor Lane just to say that when I worked at the dialysis centre out there are times of the week, and I think there are times where parking in South Malta could be absolutely hell. We could occasionally leave for shift in an afternoon. It can be difficult. And I think, it seems sensible now that we've got our beautiful new link road open. We don't want to be losing South Malta customers flying up to Barnstable at high speeds on the overtaking lanes.
Yeah, I'm going to try to defend the working party a bit behind the logic of this. I think Councillor Bell's just said it. It's not always deserted, those car parks. Sometimes they're very full. But you're talking about the sheep pen bit and the George Hotel car park. You are literally 30 seconds walk away from the town centre. And so the whole logic of the working group was to say, therefore, they should be a premium. What the private sector do, I don't know. But the other thing is, I think if you're going to bring, I'll shut up and give in if we're going to look at this again when we look at the lorry park, because you've got two areas in the sheep pen bit. There's one bit that's not quite so close, where the old wall is, or David will know what I mean. And then you go into the inner bit that's behind the pub, the town arms, where you walk into the town, and that one, you could even deal with those. So I think the logic is, if you're going to, if we need a reason not to accept, because it was a logical debate at the car parking working group that went through saying, South Malton does need, in a certain way, to be dealt with like other towns. So if the reason is to look at the lorry park and then look again at the balance between the areas, then I think I'd be relaxed. And I'm looking at Helen as chairman. We met 3 times, came in to bother go through it, and there was a lot of debate around it. But at the moment, there's no the reason that you're going against it seems to be that there's a cheaper car park and that one's going to get all the trade. Now that's not quite the logic, is it?
Well, it could also be applied to other towns in North.
Yeah, because we got the same thing with the sheepskin factory in Buds. Yeah. So I just think if it's about, let's have a look at bringing the lorry park on and then looking at how they all relate and to the vitality of the town centre, then I think that's a reasonable reason. But
I'll bring Councillor Lane in a minute. I think that's a good point. And there's no, what's the timescale on this? I mean, if we were going to perhaps wait until the February SNR, can we get the lorry car park looked at and see if that will help alleviate this, and then come back and just vote on the South Malton one in February?
The consultation timeline for the off-street parking order, that's the reason to come to January's meeting, so that the consultation process can take place with any representations made, so then it can be brought in for the March-April period, which is when any changes to charges in the OSFA then are applied. So there wouldn't be sufficient time today.
Councillor Lane, do you want to still put on the message?
Pulls up the chairman. I mean, how much income more do you think you're going to gain by making the changes to segment and get balance that against the loss?
I think it comes down to how potentially utilised then the car park could be if it didn't became a short stay car park. I think that's makes.
Sorry, I was going to say someone will unplug that as it's going to do something weird in a minute. The loose wire, it's very mad. I don't know if it's doing it the power of good.
I was going to get somebody from IT.
Sorry.
I think that car park doesn't bring significant amount of income in because it isn't very utilised at the moment. The majority of the users are the resident permits holders who use that car park, and that was a dispensation that was given that they could use that car park. Going to 140 an hour potentially could increase that income, or it potentially may go the other way in terms of people finding alternative car park spaces to pay. So we're not talking a significant revenue changer for that car park in isolation. I think what Councillor Prowse says is a sensible option in terms of that car park can be divided. You've got the wall that goes in between where we've got the electric charges on one side, and that's a lot closer then to the back of the pub where people walk through to the medical centre. You've got the car park the other side of that wall. Potentially part of that car park could stay long stay, part of that car park could become a shorter stay element, and you could have a different charging between the two. That would mean a further change to the OSPO, but I think that potentially would need to come forward maybe alongside it could come alongside the changes to the lorry park. That could be something that comes in at a later period.
I think it could come next year, and you could alter it next year if need be.
I just think it's important that we, we've asked a group to go away and do a bit of work, and if we're going to change our minds, we need to have a reason. And if it is around the lorry park and looking at different changes, and we can consider again next year, then I'm relaxed, and I think, we leave it as it is for now. Yeah.
I think there is still an amendment needs to be made. So obviously at the moment it's classified as short stay with the long stay charge. I think the focus of Councillor Lane is making is a sensible one to quantify it as a long stay car park, but also the minutes represent that the piece of work the working group have done to go away, look at the lorry park spaces, and also look at whether the Sheephead car park potentially could be segmented into short stay and long stay, and that come back as part of a future report.
Are you okay with that, Councillor Worthing? Are you okay with that?
Well, obviously, I would prefer the original proposition, but of Councillor Lane, but certainly we do need to look at the lorry park situation, so I wouldn't be totally opposed to that.
So, is that a form of amendment that you're going to make? Can we just be clear on exactly what this is then?
So I think, if I understand it rightly, Chelsea, the recommendations are as per the report.
Yeah.
With an amendment to 2.7 that adds in that the Sheephen car park, with the change that obviously the Sheephen car park be designated as a long stay car park. Weekly appropriate charges for those long stay car parks as set out in the report, which would be £7 per hour and £3.50 all day.
You happy with that?
Yeah.
We're not going to vote on that yet, because it's our thing. Is someone prepared to? Yeah. Yeah, thank you. So can we, is there anything else on South Moulton? Okay, can we extend it then? Councillor Mascon and Councillor Craft.
Thank you, Chair. I just, obviously I missed the last meeting of the group, but I know that I had sort of mentioned having some sort of a permit for Croyd for a 4-day permit, which isn't in the table. Croyd's not included in that. And I don't know if there was perhaps any further discussion on it, a meeting I missed.
It's the practicalities of it, wouldn't it?
Was the and this came back because obviously putting in just a general permit for Croyd because the number of spaces there. We talked about whether we could put in a business permit or a permit for people who are maybe, like say, working at the pub or working in the market, etc. The conversations we had at the working group was it was quite a difficult one to bring in, but there's still a piece of work to be done to see how we logistically could do that. Because obviously places like the pub, where they previously would have maybe had their own car park where their staff park, they've made a commercial decision to obviously use the car park as part of their business and therefore stop the car parking. But obviously then we as a council then obviously are trying to help that business by obviously providing cheaper car parking for their staff. Logistically, how can we do that if they're not a resident? Because obviously if they're living out of the area, then how can we put a permit system in place that enables that to take place? The team are going away to see whether that is something that can be done and whether other areas have done something similar, but not something that could come forward inside this report, actually. But it is still something that they will investigate to see whether there are alternatives. Obviously, we've got Croyd, there's not that many spaces in that car park anyway, and where do you draw the line in terms of the employees, how much they earn? Because ultimately there could be other business owners then in the town centre that might then want their staff to have a permit. And then, similar to the conversation we were having earlier, you could end up filling the car park with cheaper permit holders, but then there not being enough spaces and those businesses not stopping employing and going somewhere else and spending their money. So that was the challenge we had at the working group as to how logistically could we get a permit in place to help a small number of people. But something that the team will still go away now and look at.
Thank you.
Councillor Crabbe and then Councillor Greenhouse.
Thank you. I don't know what page number it is on yours. On mine, it's page 63 of Appendix A. It looks to me like N10 is still on Rotary Road, which it shouldn't be. We're actually saying if you want to get there overnight, that's all right in the 4 spaces.
That's not.
Page 63.
No, well, that's it, page 63 of the appendix. I don't know what page the report. 26. Thank you. I'm reading that. Is that in there? Is that 226 times there?
I'm on 235, I'll go back.
Just the Wilder Road one.
Just the Wilder Road one.
Yeah.
No Rotary. Rotary.
Go down, isn't it?
124.
224.
So you might have got 63 in the bottom right hand corner. Oh no, that's Wilder Road. You're quite right.
Yeah, 220, top of 225 is N10 Rotary Road.
Yeah. So it's just an observation, really. I mean, I think the report actually says that there's a request to take it out, but it's still in there. I'm sure the report actually says that in some way.
The report refers to Ilfracombe Town Council to adopt charges for Appendix A for Rotary Road. To adopt the removal of condition N10 for Rotary Car Park, shown in Appendix A, N10. So that condition needs to be removed because the report and request from Ilfracombe Town Council was to have that removed. So the recommendation includes that to be removed, but obviously the appendix needs to be updated.
Okay, fine. A couple of other things, if I can just bore you a moment. Will the road, but let's keep on Rotary. Sorry, Rotary. Now we've set Rotary at 140. And the reason we set Rotary at 140 is on the back of a conversation between our Laura and our Lena. And somewhere or other, the fact that North Devon was going at 160 got missed off the list somewhere. So I don't know if, as far as today's meeting goes, whether we say that the hourly rate on Rotary could be delegated maybe to yourself and the ward member or something. I don't know. It may well be that it stays at 140 because it might be too complicated otherwise, but I think they should have an opportunity to amend it should they realise that there's a 20 pence differential now, which is quite a lot.
On the it's £1.40 now, isn't it?
Yeah. Whereas all the short stays in Ilfracombe are 160. I don't know. I don't think there was an intention for a 20 pence differential. That's all. I mean, if it has to be done today, it will stay like it is. So I just wondered if I could perhaps mention to the committee back in Ilfracombe and see if they're happy with that 20 pence.
The short stays in Ilfracombe in the report, in the appendix.
Oh, 160.
Yeah, that's only covering Cove, Croyd, Jubilee Gardens, Waterhole and Pier. Not covering Rotary.
No. Sorry. Ilfracombe Town Council sent the list. Lena asked what we wanted to charge. So Laura hadn't heard a conversation, as a result of which it went through our finances committee and it went back up the line at £1.40.
Which is in the report.
Which is in the report. Yeah. Perfect. No problem at all. However, what I'm saying is from Ilfracombe's point of view, they didn't realise that at that point, there wasn't a 10 pence increase.
Yeah.
So I think the 20 pence differentials, I'm just wondering if it's possible. I'll just ask them, are you sure you want this 20 pence differential? I mean, if it's got to be done today, I'm not stressed about it. I'm just saying.
This report will obviously go to full council. Okay. So between now and full council, if obviously you are proposing, or there's a different charge for road groups come forwards, then that can be amended at full council.
All I'll do is I'll just ask the committee, that's the finance committee, that's fine. That's it. One final thing, Wilder Road at 160, put it at 160 because it's a coastal car park. But Wilder Road is the only car park remotely level near the high street in Ilfracombe. And I would think there are more people in this room today than have ever parked in Wilder Road car park to enjoy our coastal facilities. So I don't know if, again,
Wilder Road's closed at 140 now in the report. Yeah.
you sure? Okay, but bless you. What a lovely man you are. There you go. I went
Big on the middles, that was your total.
Oh, in the report, you can check the appendix.
Anyway, it says 160.
55, it says 160.
160.
Yeah, we've got a difference in the appendix. So the proposal in the appendix B, which is the summary of the NDC charges, is moving from the current 130 to 120. I think the team, when they've updated the OSPO, which is the more detailed car park, they put it in at 160 now. It should be 140.
Yeah, perfect.
The group agreed.
Yeah, the group agreed to the Wilder Road going from 130 to 140. It's the OSPO that needs to be amended. So we'll make sure that's amended for the final version that comes to full council.
There we are. Okay, look, thank you very much.
Thank you.
He's done very well. He got all three right.
Eventually, he's there.
Thanks, Chair. Page 235. Right, it's just a couple of errors in the drafting. One of it's got the town hall, which is at Linton Town Hall, forecourt. And it says owned by NDDC but operated by the town council. It's actually owned and operated by the town council. So that N5 needs to change to an N13. It's a bit
Right, 235.
235.
235. Yeah. It's about 7 or 8 spaces directly in front of the town hall. Probably part of this.
Well, you're talking about N5 owned by NDDC.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
And I raised this last year actually. And also similarly, at the top, towards the top of that town hall forecourt, it talks about free for use by visitors at the town hall and tourist information centre. There's no tourist information centre anymore, hasn't it? So just please, all tourist information centre taken out. And I don't know whether if those weren't amended, it would affect the ability to issue penalty notices on it.
But we'll make sure it's amended for the version that comes from full.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so Councillor Ricky Knight and then Councillor Wilkins. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of hopefully pertinent questions. Firstly, with regard to the charging machines, standardization, it's always been a nightmare for me. Is it going to be coins? Is it going to be Ringo? Is it going to be card? Is it going to be Apple Pay, etc.? I just wondered if there's any standardization in the offing to make it possible for people without a mobile phone or whatever to pay. And the other question is regard the ancillary matters on every section here, which is generic, isn't it? It says unless the vehicle is an electric vehicle or a hybrid and the vehicle is connected to the electric vehicle charging point and is being charged. I think it's becoming a bit endemic that people rock up, plug in, don't pay for car parking, then nip off shopping or to the cafe. And I wonder what might be done to. Yeah, they don't. I mean, so.
No, but the car parking isn't free because you.
No, but in terms of if they're not being charged, because often they just stay there and a block of space. I just wondered, is that our duty to NDC's duty to check that, or is it by the charging point owners? Okay.
Yeah. So, Chair, on the second point, the CEOs will obviously enforce on the time they paid for their parking, which you would hope would align to the charging for as well. There's no enforcement in terms of if the vehicle has stopped charging, but obviously if they've paid for their space and that goes longer than the charging period, then the enforcement is on the period that they're paying for. So they do pay for their space just like any other user. So if they pay for 3 hours, but the charging is only taking 2 hours, we get the revenue for the 3 hours. You're never going to get the charge to completely align with the car park charge they paid for, but providing they pay for their space, then as far as we're concerned, that is the right thing to be enforcing upon.
Yeah, I expect the blocking is more pertinent when there's no car parking charge, isn't it? Because that happens a lot.
Absolutely, yeah. But no, we do charge for those spaces and everyone pays the same. On the payment methods, there's no plans to standardise across and say, well, okay, cash is going to disappear. We do see differences in terms of those payment methods, and that's changed quite a lot. So back in 2019, the working group had a look at this as well as part of their remit. Back in 2019, 87% of people were paying by coins, and only 13% by card or by Ringo. Now, in 2023, only 28% pay by coins, 23% by card, and over 50% now paying by Ringo, and that's evolved quite more since then as well. But that,
can you just repeat those?
Yeah.
I must be allowed to.
So
in the report?
they're not in the report, but they were in the piece of work the working group considered, because obviously that's part of what strategy do we have moving forwards around when we replace car park machines. Do we replace with like for like? Do we replace with machines that have card, coins, and obviously still have the Ringo opportunity, or do we look at changing that as we move forwards? But coins are still quite used. We've still got 28% in 2023 that we're using coins, 23% card, and 50% paying by Ringo. Back in 2019, that had flipped quite a lot. It was 87% were using coins. So the usage of coins has come down, and obviously a lot of that was driven through the pandemic as well, because we're trying to push people onto the Ringo app. But obviously some car parks are still heavily used by cash. So that 28% of coins across the board, there are various car parks in North Devon that actually have got quite a high usage of coinage. When the team looked at it, South Molton was one of those. So the car park in South Molton, quite a lot of people were using coins compared to cards or the app. So we do need to look at it across the board. I think what the team will end up doing when we look at car park replacements is at the moment where you may have a car park and it's got 3 machines that allows you to pay by coins, card and app. When you come to replace, if the level of coinage is a lot less, you may not necessarily replace with 3 machines that have coins. You may only have 1 that has coins. But that will be part of that strategy moving forwards when we replace car park machines.
Thank you, Jim.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Yeah, Martin, just a couple of points of accuracy. Pages 240 and 242, the N4 on both of those, the owned and enforced by Morto Parish Council. The first one on 240 in Drive, it's down as owned and enforced by Morto Parish Council. The national, I say mistrust, the trust reclaimed it, so it will no longer be owned or enforced by Morto Parish, to be owned and enforced by the National Trust. And also 242, Woolacombe Village Hall is down as owned and enforced by Morto Parish Council, and that actually should be the Woolacombe Village Hall trustees. It's got nothing to do with the parish council.
So, Councillor Wilkinson, when you say that the Marine Drive is being taken back by the National Trust, do you know when from?
From now.
Yes, Dan.
It's
Right.
done. Shouldn't be.
I can say it's,
No,
that's all they do.
Yeah. That would probably need to come out of the order then.
Yeah, we now no longer operate anything up there as talking as the parish council.
And the Woolacombe Village Hall one is now looking.
It always has been. It's not a parish hall, it's a village hall owned by the trustees.
Okay, we'll make sure those changes are replicated in the time.
Value of because thing got to legalise local ward councillors present to remedy these things. Councillor Knight.
Yeah, I'd just like to come back on those taking cash at car parking machines. It'd be interesting to have some figures on how much it cost us to collect that cash back in whatever those dates were, and actually the costs now for collecting the reduced amount of cash. But is that cost actually increased? So actually looking forward again, making decisions on cashless machines and obviously the location, because obviously it will cost us a lot to drive an awful long way to collect cash twice a day or whatever, versus having some areas that take cash. And I think those costs of taking that cash and operating that cash, particularly the staff, etc., we need to also, to make a decision, we need to look at those costs in detail.
And Chair, that will come back as really part of that business case moving forwards around when we come to replace those machines and current costs of holding and handling cash, what that costs in terms of banking charges. But ultimately, the flip side of that is the increased charges and the other mechanism of using the card and the ring app as well. So we'll make sure that all forms part of that report and business case and that calls.
Interesting to know who it compares now, wouldn't it? You know, because the everything's percentage, isn't it? They all rip you off one way or another.
Thank you. Sure. To come on what Councillor David Knight just said, we'd also very much, and I know this is for another meeting and another discussion, but we would need to know the demographics of the people who are still using cash, because while I appreciate perhaps wanting to move to one cash taking machine in a car park, some car parks are quite large and some people have very reduced mobility, and I would have a feel, although no evidence at the moment, that the people who are still paying cash might have quite reduced mobility, and that's the reason they're parking in these car parks, and they would therefore want to be close to the cash taking machine. That could cause all sorts of problems. I'm also thinking it will also be people on reduced incomes who will be more likely to be using cash.
Yeah.
So we're looking at demographics who may need to use cash for various reasons. I would have some fears about moving away. Ringo's lovely, but it isn't perfect. And the network signals aren't always very great. I was wondering what Councillor Ricky Knight said. I was interested in what he said about the charging points and people using them for an excessive period of time. While I appreciate that once the car is charged, and I'm still diesel, I do apologise, but a smart car, for very, very fuel efficient. Once these cars are sitting there still being charged for their parking space, it does mean they're sitting there in a charging space, and most car parks have 1 or 2 charging spaces. Another electric car can't charge. I would controversially, I know Councillor Knight is an expert controversy, I would suggest we increase the charge if the car isn't charged. Increase the charge if the car isn't charging, so the charge is fairer, in order to persuade them to move their electric car somewhere else, pay a normal amount, while another car can then use that space to charge itself. Nobody used the word charge. And Councillor Knight.
Can I bring in Councillor Walker?
Yeah, actually, it's a really good time for me to come in, because that's what I was precisely what I was going to talk about. Having had an EV now for about 9 months, a lot of it's down to the companies that run the chargers to charge the penalty, as it were, for staying in the space. We don't know if a car is charged. You can't tell if a car is charging or not, because as soon as it starts charging, it goes onto a standard screen. So it would be down to the charge providers to charge the extra. Tesla actually charge £1 a minute for overstaying if you're not charging. Osprey, I know, I just had a quick Google, and Osprey won't charge. I think it's something that will come in the future, not £1 a minute, but
It came in, surely we wanted to deal with this as it stands, and that's another debate another day.
It's a charge.
Right, any other questions on the specifics of the costs and charges? Councillor Ricky.
There's just one quick one. It's actually pertinent in terms of BEC. I noticed that there was a charge for this parking here, unless you don't have to pay. Is that the case? Where it says Brinsworthy car parking?
Yeah, there's no charge to park here, but it is on the off-street parking order. That goes back a little while ago where there were permits in place, and it was a way that then that could be enforced here. So that's there. At the moment, there is no permit scheme in place, but it's kept on the order just in case that is something that comes back on at some point in the future.
I think that just is pertinent to things like schools and the hospital, of course. Schools don't charge for parking. Just wish one could impose that.
We don't charge for parking here for our staff.
Thank you, Jenny.
Okay, can we move on to the recommendations? Sorry. It will be quite clear in this. We go to Councillor Lane's amendments, I suppose it is, isn't it?
So members, you've got the recommendations in sections 2.1 to 2.7. 2.7 refers to North Devon Council car parks. I think the simplest way to approach this, obviously the recommendations are set out in 2.1 to 2.6, and then 2.7 be amended to add on that members approve the designation of South Knowlton Sheep Pen car park to be changed from short stay car park to long stay car park with the appropriate long stay charges as set out in the report.
Okay, thank you. With that amendment then.
But also picking up the changes.
Changes as mentioned.
Yeah, next year.
May.
Absolutely, yes,
Yeah.
with changes to the OSPO that we made. I mean, the final version that will come to full council will have those changes embedded. But quite rightly, you picked up some typos that need to be picked up on the OSPO. Well, picking up those changes, the off-street parking order, as alluded to in the minutes.
Will someone propose those recommendations, please? Councillor Crabbe, seconded by Councillor Wilkinson. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? Okay, end of the meeting. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
I would ask lead members just to stay behind for a few minutes as well, please.
When you've done that before, isn't
I'm not sure if you've seen my email about this.
Yes.
I don't know whether you know, I just thought while you were here, I might catch you. But, so we Ross, who's your councillor?
Yeah, sad start of the year.
Rod Davis.
To be able to vote.
At the bottom of the hill, yeah?
I thought it was further up, but no, it was down there. No,
It'll leak out, but it's
sad. Anyway, keeping all right?
That's fine. That's right.
Down there, I've got to take myself around to sort myself out. No.
Get yourself sorted, yeah?
No, I've got to.
It can be brilliant. I prefer that to manipulation because manipulate it back in, it'll go out again, you know?
Exactly.
And that's happened to me thousands of years. I'm better now than I've ever been because I'm playing
Just realigning your pathways of the acupuncture, isn't it? It's,
yeah.
It's genetic, isn't it? It is. It's a dumb leg.
You might have to go private.
Yes, and I suppose what's put me off. I've got to look to
MRI.
try and get that satisfied so I can keep him and stop starting. If I go for it, they can't afford it and then stop.
I don't keep very much.
I think something you're taking out something that
Then I went back to the NHS and actually had a spinal injection. So it's not the end of the world. If it's sciatic,
And I need to go back to the doctor and just, talk to them about it. Painkillers, just take painkillers.
that's 6 months. You see, and so anything might help you. I say,
Take care of you.
When we make the recommendation as a chair.
I said, if it's got to be a Santa site.